Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Unsolved Mystery Series, Episode 7.
Yeah.
You guys have shared some seriously intriguing material about the Cyanide Mohan case. So buckle up.
Yeah.
We're about to take a deep dive into one of India's most disturbing serial killer cases. And
Really is.
yeah, it's a story that reminds us just how vulnerable we can be, even in seemingly ordinary interactions.
Absolutely. And right away, what strikes me is how Mohan Kumar was able to lead this double life. You know, it's almost like a chameleon.
Right.
He was a teacher, someone you'd expect to trust.
Right.
Yet he was harboring this incredibly dark secret. It's this duality that allowed him to operate under the radar for so long.
It's almost like something out of a psychological thriller. He targeted women specifically from rural areas or lower middle-class backgrounds. It seems he understood their aspirations for a better life and twisted that hope into a weapon.
Sadly, that's a recurring theme that we see in cases like this. You know, these women often facing limited opportunities in their social context, yearned for stability, for love, for a way to improve their lives. And Mohan Kumar recognized that vulnerability and ruthlessly exploited it, dangling the promise of marriage and a brighter future like a spider weaving its web.
And that's where his marriage proposal tactic comes in, right?
Yeah.
He'd convince them to go on these trips, promising to introduce them to his family or make wedding arrangements.
Right.
It's chilling how he used cultural expectations and norms to gain their trust.
Absolutely. Imagine you're in their shoes, full of hope for the future.
Right.
And this seemingly respectable man is offering you everything you've ever wanted. It's a textbook example of how predators groom their victims,
Yeah.
slowly lowering their guard and leading them into a trap.
And then comes the most horrifying part, that supposed contraceptive pill he offered.
Which, of course, was anything but it was cyanide, a fast-acting poison ensuring a quick and silent death. The level of premeditation here is just staggering. He wasn't simply acting on impulse. Each murder was meticulously planned,
Wow.
from selecting his victims to the method of execution.
You know what gets me is that he managed to get away with this for years. How is it possible that no one noticed this pattern of missing women?
That speaks to a tragic reality. Missing persons from marginalized communities often don't receive the same level of attention or resources. Their disappearances may not make headlines,
Right.
and investigations might not be as thorough. It's a systemic issue that unfortunately allowed Mohan to continue his horrific spree for far too long.
But eventually there was a turning point. It was the relentless determination of one victim's family that ultimately led to his downfall. They refused to accept her disappearance and kept pushing the authorities to investigate.
Their courage and persistence are truly inspiring. They wouldn't let their loved one be forgotten.
Yeah.
And their relentless pursuit of justice was the catalyst for everything that followed.
Right.
It reminds us of the power of a single voice to spark change, even against seemingly insurmountable odds.
So the police finally pressured into action, start piecing together the puzzle.
Exactly. Imagine them poring over missing person reports, realizing there are more and more women who vanished after meeting a man fitting Mohan's description, and suddenly the pattern becomes clear, the seemingly random events start to align, and the chilling truth begins to emerge.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It must have been a truly unsettling moment for investigators when they realized they were dealing with a serial killer. They finally had their prime suspect, Mohan Kumar.
I can't even imagine the pressure they must have been under to catch him. What happened next? How did they finally apprehend him?
Well, the police had been monitoring his movements, and when they felt they had enough evidence, they moved in to arrest him. You have to understand, this wasn't just about catching any criminal.
Right.
This was about stopping a predator who was preying on the hopes and dreams of vulnerable women.
It's fascinating how the investigation went from this slow burn to a sudden race against time. What happened once they had him in custody?
Did he confess? Surprisingly, yes. During interrogation, Mohan Kumar confessed to his crimes, detailing his methods with an eerie calmness that sent chills down the spines of even the most seasoned investigators.
Wow.
It's like he was recounting a grocery list, completely detached from the gravity of his actions.
That lack of remorse is truly disturbing. What does psychology say about individuals who can commit such heinous acts without a shred of guilt or empathy?
It's a complex question, and there's no single answer. Some experts suggest that certain individuals might have a diminished capacity for empathy,
Okay.
a disconnect between their actions and the suffering they cause. Others point to potential psychological disorders, or even a twisted sense of power and control that fuels their actions.
This case must have been a media sensation. After all, Mohan Kumar had terrorized the region for years. What was the public reaction like when his crimes came to light?
The public was understandably horrified. Imagine the collective gasp of shock and disbelief that rippled through the community as the truth unraveled. Suddenly, this seemingly ordinary man was exposed as a monster, and the realization that he had been living among them hiding in plain sight must have been terrifying.
The trial itself must have been intense, with all the evidence laid bare and the families of the victims finally getting their day in court.
The trial was a harrowing experience for everyone involved.
Yeah.
The prosecution meticulously presented their case, laying out the chilling pattern of Mohan's crimes. Witnesses recounted their interactions with him, shedding light on his manipulative tactics. Forensic evidence linked him to the victims, and all the while Mohan remained unnervingly composed, his lack of remorse on full display.
It must have been heartbreaking for the victims' families to relive those painful memories and confront the man who had taken so much from them.
Absolutely. The courtroom was a space filled with grief, anger, and a desperate yearning for justice. For the families, it was a chance to finally have their voices heard, to see the man who had shattered their lives held accountable for his actions.
What was the final verdict? Was justice served?
In 2013, after a lengthy trial, Mohan Kumar was found guilty of multiple murders and sentenced to death.
Wow.
The judge, while delivering the sentence, called his crimes diabolical, cold-blooded, and premeditated, emphasizing the utter lack of humanity in his actions.
Even though justice was served, it can never truly heal the wounds inflicted on the families. Their loss is immeasurable. What lasting impact did this case have on society? Did it spark any changes in terms of awareness or safety measures for women?
The Cyanide Mohan case undoubtedly served as a wake-up call for many.
Yep.
It highlighted the vulnerabilities of women, particularly those from marginalized communities,
Right.
and emphasized the need for greater awareness, education, and preventative measures.
You mentioned that Mohan specifically targeted women from rural areas or lower socioeconomic backgrounds. Can you elaborate on the factors that made them particularly susceptible to his schemes?
Of course, women in these communities often face limited education and employment opportunities. They might experience societal pressures to marry and find financial stability. Mohan Kumar, with his fabricated persona of success and respectability, played on these desires, offering a way out of their challenging circumstances. He painted a picture of a life they could only dream of, and in their desperation, they were more willing to overlook red flags or trust someone who ultimately had sinister intentions.
It's a sobering reminder that predators often prey on those who are most vulnerable, exploiting societal inequalities to their advantage. What can we learn from this case, not just in terms of personal safety, but also on a broader societal level?
The Cyanide Mohan case underscores the importance of addressing systemic issues that perpetuate inequality and make certain groups more vulnerable to exploitation.
Right.
We need to empower women through education, economic opportunities, and support networks that can help them recognize and escape potentially dangerous situations.
It's not just about catching the perpetrators after the fact. It's about creating a society where such exploitation is less likely to occur in the first place.
Absolutely. It's about challenging cultural norms that condone violence against women, fostering a culture of respect and equality, and ensuring that law enforcement is adequately equipped to handle such cases with sensitivity and effectiveness.
This has been a truly insightful, albeit unsettling deep dive into the Cyanide Mohan case. It's a story that exposes the dark underbelly of humanity, but also reminds us of the importance of resilience, justice, and the pursuit of a safer world.
I completely agree. It's a story that stays with you, prompting reflection on the complexities of human behavior and the urgent need for societal change. It's been a truly harrowing exploration of this Cyanide Mohan case, hasn't it? It's a stark reminder that evil can often wear the most unsuspecting masks.
Absolutely, and what's especially unsettling is how Mohan Kumar used seemingly ordinary interactions like marriage proposals and family introductions to lure his victims into a false sense of security.
He weaponized their hopes and dreams, turning their desire for a better life into a tool for his own twisted purposes. It's a chilling example of how manipulation can work.
We've talked about the societal factors that made his victims vulnerable, but I'm curious about Mohan himself. What can you tell us about his background and motivations?
That's where it gets really interesting. Despite his heinous crimes, Mohan Kumar's past was surprisingly ordinary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he came from a humble background, worked as a teacher, and was even known as a quiet and unassuming individual in his community.
So there were no obvious warning signs? No red flags that might have hinted at the darkness lurking within him?
Not that anyone could see. That's part of what makes this case so disturbing.
Right.
He was able to compartmentalize his life, presenting a facade of normalcy while harboring a deeply disturbed inner world.
It's a reminder that evil doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights and sirens. It can be hidden in plain sight, disguised as someone we might even consider trustworthy.
Exactly, and that's why awareness is so crucial. We need to educate ourselves about the tactics used by manipulators and predators to learn to recognize red flags and to trust our instincts when something feels off.
It's also important to remember that Mohan Kumar's actions are not a reflection of India or its people as a whole.
Absolutely. This case, while horrific, should not be used to perpetuate harmful stereotypes or generalizations. It's a story about one man's depravity, not an indictment of an entire nation.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to emphasize the importance of seeking help. If you or someone you know is experiencing abuse or feels unsafe, there are resources available, and you don't have to suffer in silence.
You can find information and support online through hotlines and at local community centers. Remember, reaching out for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
Thank you for joining us on this unsettling but essential journey into the Cyanide Mohan case. We hope it sparked important conversations and encouraged you to think critically about personal safety and the complexities of human behavior.
And as we move forward, let's remember the victims of this tragedy and work together to create a world where such horrors are never repeated.
To all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on CrimePod Castle's Unsolved Mystery Series. If you found this deep dive into the Cyanide Mohan case insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. We'll be back next week with another intriguing case. Until then, stay safe and stay informed.